The station alarm blared, a brutal shriek tearing through the Sacramento night. "I'm Leo Maxwell, 38, with Redwood City Fire and Rescue." The dispatcher's voice crackled over the intercom, flat and urgent. "Structure fire, multi-story residential, 1422 Oak Street." My blood ran cold. 1422 Oak. The address was a ghost, a place I hadn't let myself think about in a decade. It was the building where they all lived. The Bakers, the Chengs, old Mr. Henderson. Their condescending voices echoed in my memory, a chorus of casual cruelty. "Look at him. Leo's too frail to protect anyone." Now, their home was an inferno, and my engine was screaming towards it. The irony tasted like ash in my mouth. The engine bucked over a pothole, snapping me back to the present. My partner, Sal, glanced over, his face grim in the flashing red light. "You know this block, Leo?" "I used to," I grunted, pulling on my 40-pound turnout coat. The weight felt familiar, a second skin of Nomex and steel. It was a different kind of weight than the one I carried growing up here. Back then, I was the asthmatic kid with glasses, all sharp elbows and books. Mrs. Baker once told my mother I had delicate bones. Mr. Henderson scoffed when I tried to help him with his groceries, saying he needed a man, not a stiff breeze. They saw weakness. They never saw the fire inside me, the one that drove me to the academy, to push my body until it broke and rebuilt itself stronger. I slammed the SCBA tank into its harness, the hiss of pressurized air a dragon's breath. My bones weren't delicate anymore. They were forged in training fires and reinforced by years of carrying people out of hell. Sal pointed through the windshield. "God, Leo, look." Ahead, the night wasn't just dark, it was glowing, orange and angry, with black smoke clawing at the sky. Home. The truck's air brakes shrieked, and we lurched to a halt. Through the windshield, 1422 Oak Street was a roaring furnace, a monster of orange flame and black smoke devouring the night. The heat radiated through the glass, a physical presence. My past was burning. A memory, sharp as broken glass, cut through the tactical chaos in my head. I'm 12 years old, sprawled on this exact patch of pavement. The chain of my bike a greasy, twisted mess beside me. My knee is a bloody ruin, and hot tears are carving paths through the dirt on my cheeks. I look up. On the second-floor balcony, the one right now being licked by flames, stands Mrs. Baker. She doesn't move to help. She just shakes her head, a portrait of pity. "Oh, the poor thing," she says to her husband, her voice drifting down like poison. "He's just so delicate." Then a shadow falls over me. It's Mr. Henderson from 1A, his face a permanent scowl. He nudges my wrecked bike with his foot. "Get up," he grunts, his voice like gravel. "Crying never set a bone or built a man. You've got a weak spirit, boy. That's a bigger problem than a scraped knee." A weak spirit, delicate bones, a stiff breeze. Their words became the bricks of the prison I grew up in. They weren't just insults. They were prophecies I was expected to fulfill. The final verdict came the night of the big storm, when a tree branch the size of a car crashed into the courtyard. I was 17, finally with a little muscle on my bones, and I tried to help the men, the real men, drag it away. Mr. Cheng, who lived in 3B, just clapped me on the shoulder with a condescending chuckle. "Leo, we appreciate the thought. But this is heavy work. Go on inside before you hurt yourself," he turned to the others. "We need some actual horsepower here. We need some actual horsepower here." That sentence echoed in the burn of my lungs at the academy. It was the rhythm I ran to, the weight I lifted. I wasn't just building muscle. I was building a weapon against their words. Every drill, every simulated rescue, every ounce of strength I gained was an act of defiance. I wasn't just learning to save lives. I was learning to save myself from the boy they told me I was. The captain's voice crackled in my headset, yanking me back to the roaring present. "Maxwell, Sal, you're on primary search, second floor. We have reports of multiple residents trapped." The second floor, Mrs. Baker's floor. I slammed the truck door shut. The 40 pounds of my turnout gear felt impossibly light. For 20 years I carried the weight of their judgment. Now I carried an axe and an air tank. I looked at the building, at the window where Mrs. Baker once stood. The fire was roaring my name, and for the first time, I was strong enough to answer. Sal and I hit the front entrance with the Halligan bar. The lock screamed, the wood splintered, and then we were inside. It wasn't a lobby anymore. It was the throat of a dragon. A wall of superheated air slammed into us, so thick it felt solid. My mask sealed to my face, the regulator hissing as it fed me clean, cool air, a privilege no one else in this building had. We took the stairs. Visibility dropped to inches, the smoke a blinding, choking black fog. We crawled, hands on the wall, the rhythmic thud of our tools against the steps counting our progress. Every inch of this stairwell was a ghost. The scuffed third step where I'd tripped and dropped a week's worth of groceries, earning a collective sigh from the adults behind me. The landing where the Cheng twins pushed me down, calling me Sticks. My past was baked into the plaster, and now the fire was peeling it all away. "Second floor!" Sal's voice was a muffled shout in my ear. The hallway was a tunnel to hell. A river of black smoke flowed along the ceiling, heat pressing down on us like a physical weight. We moved by memory. My memory. I knew this layout better than my own home. I knew the loose floorboard outside 2A, the one Mr. Henderson always complained about. We reached his door first. It was already ajar, blackened and warped. I pushed it open. The room was a vortex of orange flame, consuming the worn armchair where Henderson sat every night, judging the world from his window. "Weak spirit, boy," his voice echoed in the roar. "Search," I yelled, my own voice alien through the mask. We swept the room, low and fast, nothing. "Clear," Sal confirmed. Next was 2B, the Chengs. The door was hot to the touch. Sal put his shoulder into it, and we spilled into a room thick with blinding smoke. I could barely see my own gloved hands. My light beam cut a pathetic sliver through the gloom, catching something on the wall. A family photo, the glass cracked, the smiling faces behind it melting into a distorted nightmare. "We need some actual horsepower here." Mr. Cheng's voice was so clear, it was like he was standing right behind me. For a sickening second, a voice that wasn't mine whispered in my head, "Let them burn. Let the weight of their words turn to ash with them." The thought was so ugly, so venomous, it shocked me. I clenched my jaw, adrenaline and shame scrubbing it clean. That wasn't me. That was the ghost of the boy they tried to create. My duty was my armor against him. "Floor's soft," Sal yelled, his boot sinking slightly into the linoleum. "Structure's groaning, Leo. We gotta move!" He was right. The building was dying around us. We backed out, continuing our search pattern down the hall. Then we were there. Apartment 2C. The pineapple-shaped brass knocker on the door was black with soot, but I'd have known it anywhere. Mrs. Baker's apartment. The balcony where she'd watched me cry. And from behind the door a sound cut through the fire's roar. A cough. It was weak, desperate, and terrified. It wasn't the sound of judgment or pity. It was the sound of a human being running out of air. The sound of someone who needed to be saved by anyone, even a boy with a weak spirit and delicate bones. I raised my axe. The axe fell. Not with rage, but with the cold, practiced precision of 1,000 training drills. The steel bit deep into the jamb, once, twice. Sal slammed the Halligan into the gap, and with a scream of tortured metal, the door exploded inward. We were through. The heat was a physical blow, a solid wall of fire and suffocation. Mrs. Baker's pristine living room, famous for its doilies and porcelain cats, was a churning hellscape. The floral wallpaper peeled away in black, burning strips. We dropped to our bellies, crawling beneath the worst of the heat. "Search left!" I yelled to Sal, my voice a synthetic rasp from the regulator. I went right, towards the back bedroom. My light cut a weak path through the smoke. Every movement was automatic, a series of practiced motions that kept me alive, that kept me focused. This wasn't about the past, this was about the job. My gloved hand hit something soft, not a piece of furniture, fabric. I followed it up. An arm, then a shoulder. I angled my light down and found her, Mrs. Baker, huddled in the corner between a dresser and the wall, her face pale beneath a mask of soot. Her eyes were wide with terror, her breathing a shallow, desperate rattle. She looked right at me, at the monstrous shape in the dark with its single glowing eye. She didn't see Leo Maxwell, the delicate boy. She saw a rescuer. "I've got you," my voice boomed through the speaker, distorted and alien. I didn't wait for a response. I ran my hands over her, a quick assessment. No obvious major trauma. Smoke inhalation was the killer here. I keyed my radio. "Command, Maxwell, we have a victim. Elderly female, conscious. Prepping for immediate extraction from the second floor," Charlie sighed. The response was a crackle of static and affirmation. I positioned myself to lift her, my faceplate just inches from hers. As the beam from my helmet light caught my coat, her terrified eyes flickered down to the name stenciled in bold yellow letters across my chest. Maxwell. A flicker of disbelief. Of confusion. Then, dawning horror. Her mouth opened, but only a choked gasp escaped. I scooped her into my arms. She weighed almost nothing. A bundle of old insults and brittle bones. The woman who called me frail felt as light as a child. "Sal, I'm coming out," I yelled, my voice a flat command. "Clear the way." Turning my back on the room where she judged me, I began to carry her out of the fire. She was my mission now, nothing more. The weight of Mrs. Baker in my arms was nothing. Decades of her pity, her condescending glances, her pronouncements of my fragility, that had been heavy. This was just a person. A life. I pivoted, my body a machine built for this single purpose, and moved towards the hellish glow of the doorway. Sal was there, a dark shape against the flames, his axe ready. He saw me, saw my burden, and gave a sharp nod. "Go, I've got your back." We plunged back into the hallway. It was worse now. The river of smoke along the ceiling had descended, becoming an ocean. The heat was a living thing, clawing at the seams of my coat. Mrs. Baker coughed against my chest, a dry, rattling sound that vibrated through my bones. Her hand, frail and wrinkled, gripped my turnout coat with surprising strength. She was holding on to the boy she'd dismissed, her life literally in his hands. I felt the tremor in her grip, the silent scream of irony. We reached the top of the stairs, the only way out we knew. Then, a sound like God cracking his knuckles echoed from below. A deep, guttural groan, followed by the shriek of tortured steel and the deafening crash of collapsing timber. The entire stairwell below us erupted in a geyser of orange flame and black smoke. The floor bucked beneath our feet. The stairs were gone. Our exit was an inferno. "Stairs are gone," Sal yelled, stating the obvious with a curse. "We're cut off." I keyed my radio, my voice steady despite the hammer in my chest. "Command, this is Maxwell on 2. Primary egress is compromised. The main stairwell has collapsed. We are trapped on the second floor with a victim." The captain's voice came back, strained but calm. "Copy that, Maxwell. Ladder 7 is repositioning to the Charlie side windows. Give us your location." Charlie sighed. "The back of the building." Too far. The fire was rolling down the hallway towards us, eating the remaining oxygen, feeding on the cheap varnish of the doors. We had maybe a minute. My mind, a library of blueprints and fire dynamics, raced. But it wasn't the academy training that gave me the answer. It was the memory of a lonely 10-year-old kid. A kid who knew every crack in these walls, every secret these apartments held. Mr. Henderson's apartment. 2A. The one we'd already cleared. I remembered him boasting about it once, how his unit was the only one that shared a load-bearing wall with the adjoining building's fire escape. It was a quirk of the pre-code construction. He'd complained it made the wall too thick to hang pictures. For us, it was a door where none existed. "Sal, new plan," I shouted over the roar. "Henderson's apartment! Now!" Sal didn't question it. He trusted me. We retreated, moving back into the blinding smoke, away from the collapsing stairwell. We were a three-person train, me in the lead carrying Mrs. Baker, Sal right behind, using his body to shield us from the advancing heat. We burst back into Henderson's place. The armchair was now a skeleton of glowing embers, the heat intense enough to make the air shimmer, and that's when my light beam caught him. Sprawled near the kitchen entryway, half hidden by the smoke, was a large figure. It was Mr. Henderson. He must have escaped the initial flashover in his living room only to be overcome by the smoke. His face was gray, his breathing non-existent. The man who told me I had a weak spirit was a dead weight on the floor. A massive 6'2" dead weight. The building groaned again, a final death rattle. Time was gone. "Sal, victim number 2, I yelled. "Unconscious, not breathing." Sal's eyes widened behind his mask. 2 victims. 1 conscious, 1 not. 1 exit, and it wasn't even a real one yet. The equation was impossible. "Which one, Leo?" Sal's voice was tight. "Triage, the brutal math of our job. The conscious victim has the better chance. Standard procedure." My mind flashed back to that courtyard. The fallen tree branch. Mr. Cheng's words. "We need some actual horsepower here." Mr. Henderson's gravelly voice. "Crying never built a man." They saw a boy who couldn't lift a branch. They were about to see a man who could move a mountain. There was no choice to make. Not for me. Not today. "We take them both," I said, the words coming out like iron. "Leo, we can't." "We can." I cut him off, my voice leaving no room for argument. I knelt, shifting Mrs. Baker's slight weight to one arm and grabbed the thick strap of Henderson's turnout pants with my free hand. The wall. The one behind the stove. "It's plaster and lathe. We go through it. Now!" I pointed with my chin. Sal understood. He grabbed his Halligan bar and attacked the wall with a ferocious, desperate energy. Plaster exploded. Wood splintered. Behind him, I could see the fire beginning to pour into the room from the hallway, a liquid wave of destruction. "Give her to me!" Sal shouted over the noise. I carefully transferred Mrs. Baker into his arms. Her eyes, wide and terrified, never left my face. They held a question I didn't have time to answer. I turned my full attention to the man on the floor. I hooked my arms under his, locking my hands over his chest in a drag rescue grip. I planted my feet, dug my heels into the buckling floor and pulled. He didn't budge. He was an anchor. My muscles screamed, my back strained against the 40 pounds of gear plus his 250. Times, weak spirit boy. The words were fuel. I roared, a raw, primal sound of pure effort, and leaned back, putting every ounce of my being, every year of my training, every moment of my anger into the pull. He moved. An inch. Then another. I was dragging the dead weight of my own past across a burning floor. Behind me, Sal had punched a man-sized hole through the wall. I could see the faint red glow of the fire escape lights through the dust and smoke. It was our way out. It was salvation, carved out of the wall of an old man's complaint. "He's clear," Sal yelled, disappearing through the hole with Mrs. Baker. Now it was just me and Henderson. The fire rolled over the ceiling, a wave of orange about to break. I gave one last monumental heave, pulling him through the hole and onto the grated metal of the fire escape. He was a deadweight anchor, a monument to the man he used to be. I collapsed on top of him, my lungs burning, sucking recycled air from my tank. I was through. We were out. For a heartbeat, there was a strange, suspended peace. The roar of the fire was now behind me, the cool night air, a shocking contrast, on the exposed parts of my neck. Below, the street was a chaotic ballet of flashing lights and scurrying figures. Sal was kneeling a few feet away, holding an oxygen mask to Mrs. Baker's face. Her eyes were fixed on me, wide and unblinking over the rim of the mask. The pity was gone, replaced by a raw, naked awe that was somehow more damning. She saw me. Not the ghost of the boy she remembered, but the man who had just carried her out of her own tomb. Then a scream from above shattered the moment. "Help! Somebody, help me!" I looked up. On the third-floor landing, silhouetted against a fresh explosion of flame from a shattered window, was Mr. Cheng. His face was a mask of soot and panic. The fire was pouring out of his apartment, turning the metal of the fire escape around him cherry red. The flimsy stairs leading down to us were already warping, glowing with impossible heat. He was cut off. "Ladder 7 is still 5 feet off," Sal yelled, his voice tight with desperation. "They can't get the angle! The stairs won't hold!" Mr. Cheng saw it too. He looked down at the glowing metal, then back at the fire consuming his home. He was trapped between two hells. His condescending chuckle echoed in my head. "We need some actual horsepower here." He was right. I didn't think. I acted. "Cover them," I ordered Sal, shrugging out of my heavy SCBA pack to reduce my weight. The sudden freedom was dizzying. I clipped the pack to the railing, grabbed my Halligan bar from its loop, and looked at the 12-foot gap separating our landing from his. It wasn't just a gap of space. It was a chasm of superheated air and failing steel. "Leo, what are you doing?" Sal shouted. "It's a no-go. Wait for the ladder." Waiting wasn't an option. The railing on Cheng's landing was starting to buckle. I saw the physics of the problem, not with fear, but with the cold calculus of the job. I jammed the forked end of the Halligan into a structural joint of the railing beside me, testing it. It held. I took a deep breath of canned air, a final gift from my tank, and started to climb. Using the ornate ironwork of the century-old fire escape as handholds, I moved sideways, my boots searching for purchase on the narrow ledge outside the railing. I was a spider on a hot grill. The heat radiating from the building was searing, blistering the paint on my helmet. My gloves smoked where they touched the metal. Below, I could hear shouts, a chorus of disbelief from the crew on the ground. "Horsepower," I grunted to myself. The word a prayer, a curse, a promise. Each movement was deliberate, a test of strength and will against burning steel. The memory of trying to lift that tree branch fueled me. This was heavier. I reached the section directly below Cheng's landing. The final climb was sheer, a vertical ascent over glowing metal. I hooked the Halligan onto the railing above me and pulled myself up, my muscles screaming in protest. I swung one leg over the railing and onto the landing, landing hard on the groaning platform. Mr. Cheng stared at me, his eyes wild with terror. "It's going to go," he shrieked. "Look at me!" I commanded, my voice raw. I grabbed the front of his shirt, forcing him to meet my gaze. "You are going to climb over that railing, onto my back, do you understand?" He nodded, speechless. I turned, planting my feet and bracing myself against the building. "Now!" He scrambled over, clinging to me like a child, his weight a sudden, jarring burden. Just as his feet cleared the railing, the landing gave a final, agonized screech. The bolts tore from the brickwork, and the entire platform dropped, swinging down like a drawbridge before ripping away completely and plunging into the darkness below. We were left hanging, my grip on the railing and Cheng's grip on me the only things defying gravity. My arms felt like they were being torn from their sockets. But I held. Every insult, every condescending remark, every dismissive chuckle was now a fiber in the muscles of my arms, my back, my legs. I was the horsepower. Slowly, hand over hand, I began to traverse back the way I came, a grown man clinging to my back. Then, a brilliant white light washed over us. The ladder. It pressed against the railing, right beside us, a bridge to. A firefighter's gloved hands grabbed my wrists, hauling me onto the ladder's platform. Another pulled Cheng off my back. I sagged against the rungs, my arms screaming, every muscle trembling with adrenaline and exhaustion. The journey down was a blur of flashing lights and shouted commands from below. Cheng was a shivering mess in front of me, his choked sobs lost in the engine noise. My boots hit the asphalt, and the world rushed in. Paramedics swarmed, pulling Cheng away. I ripped off my helmet. the cool night air a shock to my sweat-soaked face. I leaned against the engine, gasping for breath, my gaze sweeping the chaotic scene of hoses and hurried medics, and then I saw them. Mrs. Baker sat on the bumper of an ambulance, a shock blanket around her shoulders, her face a pale, wrinkled canvas of disbelief. Her eyes, the same eyes that had watched me cry over a broken bike chain, were now fixed on me. The pity was gone, replaced by a devastating awe. A few feet away, Mr. Cheng stood with a paramedic, his head bandaged. He stared at me, his mouth slightly open, as if the words "actual horsepower" had been permanently lodged in his throat. I pushed off the engine and walked towards them, my steps heavy in my waterlogged boots. This was it, the moment I had replayed in my mind 1,000 times. The confrontation. The reckoning. Mrs. Baker tried to stand as I approached, her frail hands trembling. "Leo," she whispered, her voice cracking. I never knew." Mr. Cheng just shook his head, speechless. I stopped a few feet from them. I looked from her face to his, seeing not the giants of my childhood, but two scared old people wrapped in blankets. There was no triumph in me, no desire to throw their words back in their faces. There was only the quiet, profound emptiness of a weight finally being set down. The fire inside me hadn't been for them. It had been for me. Across the street, I saw the medics working on Mr. Henderson, a steady rhythm of chest compressions. Another life I'd fought for. My job wasn't done. "It's Maxwell," I said, my voice flat, professional. "Firefighter Maxwell, are you injured, ma'am?" Her eyes welled with tears. It wasn't an answer, it was a surrender. The boy she called delicate was gone, burned away in the fire she couldn't escape. In his place stood a man she didn't know at all, and in that moment, I was finally free. Has anyone ever told you that you weren't strong enough or good enough to do something? I want to hear your story in the comments about how you proved them wrong.